Hello. I'd just like to call to your attention that in this week's episode of Comic Book Movie Oblivion, we discuss material that is sexually explicit and not suitable for everyone. So please be warned and enjoy.
Feast fucking.
Hello and welcome to Comic Book Movie Oblivion, the podcast about feature films based on comic books and comic strips that people have stopped talking about. We are your hosts, Jordan and Kumar. That's me.
And me.
And this week we are talking about Killer Condom from 1996. Now, I have to say, I had a lot of thoughts this week, including the fact that there's podcasts out there that are just like talking about Iron Man and Ant-Man and Guardians of the Galaxy all day, every day, and here we are talking about Killer Condom. We're on Skype for the first time in a long time.
That's right.
Due to COVID. Now, the thing I love about this is people are going to listen to this in 10 years and think it was recorded in 2020. Nope, it's 2024. Right in the middle of it, but it's going on in this house. And the other thing is we had a content warning, which probably should have done for a lot of other episodes.
Possibly.
But at the same time, this movie is called Killer Condom. Probably doesn't even need a content warning. I mean, it's right there in the title.
Well, I mean, all right, block your ears for those of frail dispositions, but this is the first comic we've done where in the first few pages someone shits out a decapitated penis.
Yes.
Dismembered penis, I should say.
Yes. Well, which leads us to pause the podcast.
Nope.
Yeah, I don't think you need to pause, but, the movie's called Killer Condom, and this movie's not for everybody. But it might be for you. If you hear the title and you think it's hilarious, you want to check it out, I would recommend checking it out, but just beware that we're going to spoil some plot twist, but there's nothing. I mean, the whole thing is playing on cliches and tropes in the first place, so you can't spoil it.
Once you know what you're getting into,
yeah,
you're getting into a
For
parody.
example, if I was to say mad scientist, then immediately all these images would come to your mind and they would all be correct.
Yep.
Or if I was to say New York hard as nails cop, you would have a bunch of images come to your mind and those would all be correct.
Yep, that's it.
Because this comic is playing with all of those things.
Exactly.
Okay, so I guess we can start with this comics by a cartoonist named Ralf König.
König. It means
König.
king.
Yes, it does mean king, and there's a documentary about him called King of Comics, which came out in 2012, and very difficult to find. I couldn't find it streaming in Australia anywhere. It is on Prime in the US, I think, based on my Googling. But I will say many months ago, I bought the DVD of it. And then I opened it up, and the DVD was the King of Comics DVD, and I stuck it in my machine today, and a different movie played.
No.
It was like some kind of crazy factory error. I couldn't find anyone else selling this DVD. It looks like a real DVD. It's got the right cover. It's got the right everything. And then it played some crazy-ass movie that had nothing to do with King of Comics. Amazing. Just amazing factory error. So that's how obscure that is. But you can see trailers of it. I did find a review of it online that was like pretty
So it definitely
positive.
exists.
It exists. And it's from 2012, which is, before everybody started getting documentaries about them through crowdfunding and stuff. So he's like actually a really significant German cartoonist.
I believe so. I wasn't able to. Yeah, that tracks with what I read as well.
There have been
very, very well known.
Yeah. And he sold, apparently, he's up to like 5 million copies of his books in print and translated into at least 12 languages. And a bit of an icon, apparently, gay icon.
Absolutely a gay, kind of like gay rights, gay art icon. Yeah.
Yes.
His comics tend to be about, Wikipedia says, gay issues and themes.
And yeah.
he himself is gay. And this one, this first comic, Condom des Grauens, Condom of Horror, is his first comic that he wrote with a continuous story.
Yes. So everything else was, I guess, like gags, a bit like maybe. Maybe
gags
like,
or one shots.
Yeah, maybe like I immediately thought of Bechdel's Dykes to Watch Out For. But he's a bit of what we call a Bigfoot cartoonist. So in terms of the extremely cartoony cartoonists, if you know what I mean, there's two types. There's the rubber hose cartoonists, where the arms and legs are just rubber hoses with no joints. And then you got the Bigfoot cartoonists, where the hands and feet are still oversized to be really expressive, but you've got elbows and knees. So that's your E.C. Seeger, Popeye kind of cartooning would be what's called Bigfoot style.
Yeah. Huge noses, huge feet, huge hands.
Huge schlongs in this comic as well.
So many.
And it's constantly, size is constantly discussed. So
constantly.
Yeah. It's a plot point. It's like a feature plot point. It's important. It's why, our main cop is like such an appetizing meal for the killer condom, is especially the size of his schlong. It's like, I gotta have that one.
Yep, that's pretty much how it goes down.
König was born in 1960, came out in 79, so he's like 19 years old, pretty young, I think, in 79. I don't know what it was like in Germany. Watching this movie, I thought, wow, this is kind of progressive, but then maybe it wasn't for Germany in 96. Maybe this is like normal queer cinema in 96.
I have no basis for comparison.
Yeah, I don't know. This book, the first one came out in 87, I think. And then the sequel came out in 1990. The movie is based on both of these. The sequel is called Down to the Bone, in English.
Yes.
And that I was about to say the English. Oh, yeah. So the English release is readily available through a company called Ignite Entertainment. Especially, it was released once before, I think, by Catalan in the 90s. Maybe even like 92 or something like that. And then this one came out I think around 2011. The Ignite Entertainment edition. You can buy it online in PDF or CBR form, and it's really easily accessible. Yeah, so this is comic book movie oblivion for sure. But I do want to point out that this movie is still talked about. There was an episode of Horror Queers podcast that covered it just in January of this year.
Yes, I noticed that when I was doing my research. Yeah. I didn't have time to listen to it, but...
It's a pretty good episode, that show. I do listen to that podcast once in a while, and I haven't in a while, but I did listen to that one. This translation is by a guy named Jim Stakely. I don't know anything about him. But it's a really good translation of the first volume. The second volume is translated by a guy named Jeff Krell, who is a gay cartoonist in his own right. He has his own career as a cartoonist, I guess. But probably, anyway, we'll talk about that maybe a little bit more later on. So yes, as you said, right from the opening, we have this guy who comes home to his wife. He's been turning tricks down at the docks. The wife is pissed off that he's not at home with her and her kid, and their kid. But he has had sex with a dock worker.
Yeah.
He's got a 9-year-old kid and a wife, and I think there's something like the dock worker was on drugs, or the wife is on drugs. I can't remember. There's a lot of drugs involved.
If everyone's on drugs.
Yes.
Right. So at this point, I thought, what am I getting into? Because it was really shocking. It's pure filth. The first.
It is pure filth, pages. And yet it's drawn in that Bigfoot style, which is
just made
like you're in a weird. It's like you're reading Wizard of Id, and then this guy tells the guy tells a story about how this dock worker's penis got ripped off while they were.
Yeah, just to sort. It's still in his. He's staggered home.
Yes. Gasping
and wheezing because this experience, and it's still the penis is still up his ass.
Yes.
His wife, I don't know if they're married. She's heavily pregnant, hideous looking. Actually has a cloud of flies around her.
And her shirt is her top open and her breasts hanging out?
Her top is open and her breasts are hanging out. She ties her arm to inject heroin. she complains that their 7-year-old, 9-year-old son likes to masturbate while
Yes.
breastfeeding from her.
Yes. Oh my God, I forgot about the detail. Yes. Yes.
And and she says he's just having a bad trip, that he needs to take a Valium and go lie down. And then he goes to the toilet, strains for several panels, and then defecates out the severed penis.
Yes, and then the penis comes to life and jumps out of the condom jumps out
We
of
don't know. Oh, yeah.
comes to life out of the toilet and attacks his crotch. And then then we cut to opening credits, which says 20th Century Fox presents a Ralf König film.
Yes.
And then we get like movie kind of credits. So he's treating it as a kind of parody of
It's
movies.
not 20th Century Fox, though, Kumar. It's 20th Century Fox.
I said that. I did say Fox.
Oh, did you? Sorry.
I said 20th Century Fox. F-U-X.
Sorry, it's the audio quality. I apologize.
Yeah. So it's done in kind of credits. It's supposed to be set in New York, which is a fact that I kept forgetting. I kept thinking this is
in Germany.
In Germany, absolutely. But and I love the way he draws the city, which is he doesn't. He photocopies pictures into black and white, into stark black and white, and just draws over them.
Is that what's happening? Okay.
Yeah. So he doesn't have to actually draw in the cityscapes. He's just photocopied pictures of New York and put them in there.
Just to rewind a bit. Like, there's nothing. This was really confronting.
Did you read this at work?
No, thank God, not this time. Not this time. No, I knew what I was getting into. We discussed it last week. But I don't know. I thought it was going to be, I don't know, something a little more jocular, tamer. I must admit, it does tone it down a bit as the comic goes on. And by the time we reach the second book, the second story, the second comic book, the Down to the Bone, it's leveled off a lot. But this one, Killer Condom, like, it's just wall-to-wall filth.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything as bad as that opening sequence, though, except for the next sequence. So it does kind of peter out, as you said, pardon the accidental puns that are going to happen throughout the episode.
Yeah, there's lots of puns. We've got the characters, too. There's nothing titillating about them. They're grotesque. As you said, it's the Bigfoot style. It looks like a Wizard of Id or Al Cap or Hagar the Horrible.
Yeah.
Except it's like Al Cap and Hagar the Horrible fucking.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just like I didn't know what I don't know if I wanted to keep reading.
It's interesting that the title Killer Condom wasn't enough of a giveaway, but I will say also
I thought it was going to be humorous. I didn't
well,
think
it
it was
is. I think it really is.
A little more lighthearted, a little less.
I think it's treated lighthearted. I don't think there's any way you can treat that toilet scene seriously or literally, if you know what I mean. I think
the pregnant woman's injecting smack.
Yeah.
There's a cloud of flies around her head.
Exactly. There's a cloud of flies. It's piled on so thick. And I mean, the movie's really literal about stuff as well. It's interesting. The movie, I don't think there's any nudity in it.
We get to see some naked men's
butts, yes.
Yep.
But you never see.
There's
a thread of seeing breasts, and you never see them. Yeah. You never actually see a full penis. You see peaks, you also see dismembered ones.
You never really see a penis, no. You just see, as you say, you see the condom clad.
Yeah.
No, I think there's only. Yeah, obviously. This film had a general release.
Yeah, I think it was. Well, we watched the director's cut as well, which is a little bit more explicit in certain moments.
Right. But interesting that there wasn't even any breast. But
you know what?
I suppose reasonable considering it's a film essentially about gay men.
Yeah.
So I suppose it's a deliberate kind of aesthetic choice to have only male nudity. So
I was also listening to a podcast about Texas Chainsaw Massacre this week. And I think Tobe Hooper was going for a PG rating because there's no gore in that movie. There's really nothing that crosses the line into R in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I feel like he was almost going for the same thing with the movie. Comic, on the other hand, is really explicit.
Right. Yeah. Well, back to the comic. As you say, it is presenting itself as a film.
Yes.
So we've got
a
20th
parody,
century
a parody of a film. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So we're rolling credits. We've got starring.
Yeah.
So on and so forth. Music by Ennio Morricone.
Yes, music and special effects are the two things you don't have in comics. I loved that those were the two credits.
Yeah.
That was really clever, actually. It's not anything else that might be like inking or, paper printing or anything like that. The credits are music and special effects.
False, completely false credits. So they have nothing to do with the production of the comic. Yeah. It's purely to establish that this is a parody, specifically a parody of noir cinema, yet with, like oceans of filth.
Yeah, and horror movies. It really does play on the horror movie tropes. But he announces that at certain points in the comic.
Yeah.
All right, so it's our next scene after the first credits and our shots of New York is this professor coming to this hotel called the Hotel Quickie with a student, and he takes her up to the room. And he says, you thought you passed your test, but actually you failed. And I lied, but I will pass you. I've had feelings for you. If you have sex with me, I'll pass you your points. Think about what your parents will think if you fail. She's like,
it's so sleazy.
It's so sleazy. He starts undressing her. She's like, get your hands off of me. And he's like, well, that's it. You'll have to fail your course. Your parents are going to be so disappointed. She starts crying. And he says, I see you're getting sensible. And she starts to tear up.
She starts undressing and she's crying and undressing.
Yeah. So he grabs a condom because they're free. He had actually turned back to the hotel clerk and said, are there condoms in the room as they were coming up? And this guy's like, yeah. He comes up there. Oh, they're open condoms. So this is maybe the plot hole is that they're open condoms on the dresser next to the bed. I'm not sure who would use an open condom. It seems crazy to me. And he comments that this safe sex campaign must be costing a fortune.
Well, it's that. I think it might be covered in the comic. The condoms are cheaper because they're not in packets.
Still.
Yeah.
Still, it's an open
sleazy. Oh yeah, this is a sleazy flea. This is a flea-bitten flop house that people go to for 10 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
For their sordid encounters.
It's called the Quickie Hotel. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's full of prostitutes, especially in the movie. They're of all stripes. Like every type of prostitute is there. Anyway. So I think we maybe get a little bit of that here. There are other prostitutes coming in when he comes in. The student doesn't really know what kind of place they're in.
No, she doesn't understand why they're there.
That's right.
She does pretty soon.
Yeah, until they get up there. He puts a condom on. Suddenly, his penis is bitten off.
Yep.
Now we get another opening credits page. This is where we get the comments about the special condom effects and the music. And there are main character's named Luigi Macaroni.
Yeah.
He's Sicilian, but he's a Sicilian cop in New York. So he's your Al Pacino type in Serpico, or in Volume 2, specifically Cruising. But we'll get to that. That's all in Volume 2. So the cop shows up, this cop Luigi Macaroni, who never takes off his glasses, even in the shower in the comic.
And in his hospital bed.
In his hospital bed and in the shower. He never takes off his sunglasses. So he comes into the office. He's got the parents of the girls there, and he's like, look, they've come from Philadelphia. And they're like, look, your daughter is under arrest for biting off the penis of her professor in a downtown hotel that's frequented by prostitutes.
And the mother faints.
They're horrified. Yeah, she faints. She does a flop take.
Yeah.
And he mentions that just last week a prostitute bit the head off her John's penis in the same hotel, in the same room.
Same room specifically. Yeah.
Same room. Okay, so then he goes out onto the street. He's going somewhere, but he talks. Now we get the tough guy narration. We get the Travis Bickle narration, where he talks about life in the big city. He says, "But I couldn't live anywhere else. I mean, I have to live here because I couldn't live in the country. I need to live where the big city stuff is. Immediately we see he's going to the red light district where the sex shops are and the live nude girls. He's kind of propositioned by a prostitute named Fred with big breasts, who knows who he is. He's a regular around here. And then this guy kind of catches his eye, a prostitute, and follows him back into the hotel quickie. And he's going there to investigate the room, but then this prostitute, this young man, has followed him in. Now, I believe the lads would call this gentleman a twink. So he's very much the opposite of Luigi Macaroni. He's a very, especially in the movies, very clean-cut, handsome young man.
I believe Luigi Macaroni would be described as a bear.
Yes. Yeah. So this guy's like, "Are you a cop?" He's like, "Yeah, whatever." They go up to the room. They're about to have sex. Luigi's got a giant schlong, which is later revealed to be, I think they say 32 centimeters.
Okay, so that's the film. The film says 32 centimeters.
They say 15 inches in volume 2.
The comic, yeah, it's 15 inches in volume 2, yeah.
Yeah. So
it's ridiculous.
He's about to put on a condom, so he reaches the one on the bedside, but then the prostitute, who we don't get his name in this comic, by the way.
No, he's nameless.
He's nameless. He's like, "Don't use that one. Let's use one of mine." And they start going at it, but then they see the condom on the bed, on the dresser, start to move and make noises, make hissing noises. Hilariously, in the movie, makes squeaky mogwai kind of noises.
It's amazing in the movie.
And it jumps off the table and under the dresser, under the bed. Luigi gets up to look. He looks under there, and suddenly it zips out onto his crotch and bites off his testicle, and then we get a smash cut to the hospital.
Yes. Where
his chief comes in to talk to him, Sam. It's actually, these roles are a bit switched around in the movie because of the combination, but the chief is called Sam here.
Yes.
And he says that my nut was bit off by a rubber, by a condom. And Sam doesn't believe it. He's like, "Look, we saw this prostitute run out of the hotel half naked. We know it was him."
Yeah.
And Luigi Macaroni's like, no, it wasn't him. But that guy comes to the hotel he visits. Or sorry,
yes,
the hospital. He visits him in the hospital.
And this is my favorite line in the comic is the rent boy asks him, "And how do you feel? I mean, with only one ball?" And Luigi replies,
"Yes.
Jerking off this morning, I felt a little woozy, but otherwise okay."
Yes, I agree. That is the best line. I agree 100%. I wrote that one down too in my notes as well.
Brilliant.
So this rent boy has actually come hoping for sex. Like, he wants to have sex with Luigi.
Yeah.
And he's brought him flowers. And Luigi is like, "I'm never going to use a rubber again." Really interesting stuff going on here. Like, immediately you want to read a AIDS subtext into it. It's 1987. But then later on, AIDS is mentioned explicitly. So it's not even a subtext. It's really a goofball comic, I think.
Yeah. I was looking for something like that too, but I don't think. Yeah, it's almost the anti-AIDS comic because of the prophylactics that are dangerous.
Yes.
So it's just absurd.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. So meanwhile, back at the Hotel Quickie, another John has his penis bitten off. But his response is, "Man, oh man, what great head," as he's standing there with blood pouring out of his crotch and this naked prostitute, this female in this case. Luigi comes back to the police station from the hospital, and 13 pricks have been bitten off while he was laid up in the hospital.
Yeah.
And he says they haven't found a thing in the hotel. Yeah, this is where he goes back out on the streets. We get another Travis Bickle narration where he talks about it's not that crazy that there would be a rubber that bites your dick off, because in this day and age, completely unheard of things pop up all the time. Toxic waste, meltdown, at-risk groups, AIDS, outing, out. I don't know what outing is, but anyway. So what's to keep the idea of killer condoms from being generally accepted? So he pretty much believes it. He goes to the hotel. He investigates. The condom is hiding between the pillows. It's a real horror movie, kind of like first-person shots from the condom cam point of view.
Yeah, well, except the condom's always looking at his junk.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
I mean, there's just so many
fantasizing about it. Yeah.
There's so many dicks in this comic.
And all the other condoms are on the floor. Like the real condoms have been left like under the bed. They've been shoved under there by the killer condom, presumably.
Yes, the killer condom hides the regular condoms under the bed so it can substitute itself.
Yes. For
the real ones.
Yes.
So in this, there is only one killer condom.
Yes. So Luigi goes to visit the rent boy again. They finally have sex now. But he has set up monitors in the hotel so he can watch what's happening in all the rooms.
He set up cameras. Like,
yeah.
I don't know how he managed that, but he's got them. They're in all the rooms.
Doesn't matter. They watch this one prostitute being hung upside down in a kind of BDSM way, and this guy is asking how much to slap her. He's about to put the condom on, and then Luigi's like, "This is it!" So he runs in the room, shoots it up, he demands that she take off the condom, shoots it up and says, it's actually a normal condom, it's not the one they're looking for, and he says, "I wouldn't reuse that rubber, there's a hole in it," which is a great line after he's shot it full of holes. And he's about to leave, but then there is another attack that happens, and they run back, and then the condom is escaping, and they see it running down the hallway, hissing, and there's still a penis inside of it. So he follows a trail of blood, but it escapes. So now this is kind of getting all over the newspapers. Sam is your trope police chief chewing out the loose cannon cop for pursuing this.
Grizzled police captain.
Yeah.
God damn it, Luigi!
Yeah, exactly.
No such...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he goes...
So in the but no one believes in the... No one's seen the condom except Luigi.
Yeah.
Really. So, you know, like, no one believes him.
Yeah.
And they all make fun of him.
Yes.
As well.
So he goes home. He gets in the shower. We get a bit of the shower scene from Psycho here. But the condom has followed him.
Yes.
Because it wants revenge or it wants a schlong. Either way,
I think it's pretty clear it wants it wants the biggest meal around, which is Luigi.
Right.
Yep.
So he calls up the rent boy to, I don't know, they're kind of getting close actually. Luigi feels like people are only interested in him for the size of his penis. He never has any real relationships, but this is actually kind of a sweet relationship that's forming between these two because this guy claims that he's genuine. So then he notices that the thing is there. He hears it or he sees it moving around. Luigi knows it's in his apartment. So he gets his gun. He exposes himself as bait for the thing, hoping it'll jump out so he can shoot it. There's another great line here where he says, "I thought of the 16 dicks that this creature had already had on his conscience. 16 dicks in one ball."
And we see them.
And
well. We see them all.
Yes, we see them all.
And the single ball.
Yes. And this thing attacks him. He jumps out the window, and there's a panel here where he says, "I know there was actually no reason to fall out of the window on the 25th floor, except maybe that it makes a great ending for a horror movie." So he's hanging off the ledge. The condom is hilariously creeping up on him. It bites off one of his fingers.
Starts biting off his fingers one by one.
Yeah.
So that his grip becomes ever more precarious. As you say, it's yet another kind of thriller / horror movie trope.
Yeah, it only gets one, though, because then the rent boy shows up and realizes something's gone wrong. He smashes through, and he pulls Luigi up. They come up with a plan to use a gas hose. So he holds a gas hose between his legs to lure the condom. The condom jumps onto the gas hose. They turn on the gas. They let it out the window where I guess it floats up.
They tie it off so that it's balloon sized.
Yeah.
And they let it out the window. Yes, it starts floating away.
Yeah, because I guess it's
as though
helium.
it was full of helium.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Natural gas is heavier than air, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I guess
it's movie logic, I think.
Well,
So,
I guess it's sufficiently light and has sufficient surface area that it's getting blown around on the wind.
yeah.
It doesn't matter. Anyway, it
Yes.
floats far enough away and then he shoots it with his gun and it explodes.
It explodes, and then they have sex.
Jaws style.
And then it's true love, as they say at the very end, and that's the end of Volume 1. Which seems like the ending.
I think it was, but I guess the comic was sufficiently popular that that they bring it back for To the Bones, and it pretty much starts off the same way. We see a man. He's leaving a pub. In the alley, there's a guy in, I guess, sort of leather. He's wearing one of the village people hat.
Yeah.
Leather hat, shirtless. It's very cold, but he's shirtless nonetheless, and he's quite statuesque, right? He has a ripped physique so he's less of a troglodyte than most of the characters that we've seen in the comics so far.
Yes.
But there's more to him than meets the eye, because he never moves or speaks except to unzip his fly, and then off panel this time. So in contrast to the previous comic where everything very much happened on panel. This time, off panel, something happens.
Yeah.
You don't know what, except the man vanishes.
The guy that's propositioning him is like, what is that? Is this some kind of joke? Knock that shit off. What the hell is that? When the guy pulls out whatever in his pants. So he's freaking out.
Yeah.
And then he's like screaming, ow, ah, and then there's a kind of fizzle out. We get some photocopies of New York.
Yeah, and more credits. We roll credits again.
Yeah, but this time we're definitely... as I said before, riffing on cruising, and I was like saying, oh, the subtext is cruising, but it's not, because they mention cruising out loud again. So it's like the AIDS thing. It's not a subtext. It's right there. That's kind of maybe not what the point of it is, but the cops show up. These cops show up at Luigi's house. Luigi's the first time we see without his sunglasses on in this comic. He never had them off in the first comic.
Yeah, I didn't realize this was even Luigi at this point.
Yeah,
because,
exactly.
I mean, we sort of had a happy ending.
Yes.
And now here he is. He's having a nightmare about having to get married.
Yeah.
Back in his hometown in Sicily.
Yeah.
And how important it is that A, his partner be a woman, and B, that she be a virgin. And neither of those things interests Luigi. And also he's in bed with two Brazilian boys, I think.
That he's paid for, yeah.
Yeah, rent boys, yeah.
Yeah.
So then his door's kicked in. It's the grizzled cop again. Is this the police captain again?
Different. No, it's different cops. It's not Sam. It's a different couple of cops. One of whom is named Plumley, who becomes his partner on the case.
Ah, yes, you're right. Yeah. And they don't want to be here. They're horrified at this because he's not bothering to get dressed or tie up his robe.
Yeah.
Everything's on display, and he's openly bragging about what he's going to get up to, what he's been up to, and what he's going to get up to as soon as they leave.
Yeah.
Anyway, then he heads out to the crime scene. Here we meet the grizzled captain again. I don't know if it's the same captain, but he fulfills our expectations and yells about, "God damn it, Luigi!
Yeah.
When I send an officer to get you out of bed, I expect you here as quick as possible."
Yeah. Yeah.
And we see the stiff, the cadaver.
Yeah.
And
that's another good one.
Except this time it's not much of a. It's just a skeleton.
Yeah. Well, there's an important point that a couple of people have died the same way. They've been de-skinned down to just their skeletons, down to the bone, as the title of the comic is. But one of these people was somebody important, some like scion of some company, like I don't know, I think it was oil magnate, something like that, right? He's from some important family. So that's why the case has to be dealt with quickly. Otherwise, they wouldn't really care. In the movie version, they're really quite on the nose about this stuff. They're like, who cares about a bunch of queers and prostitutes? Like, they just say lines like that out loud. Here, it's more like, well, okay, one guy got killed in the alley, but also this rich kid got killed, which is changed to a different kind of character in the movie, which we'll talk about when we get to it. But that really puts things into gear in terms of the investigation. Yeah, so it's just a skeleton when they get there.
Yes, and the last person that this guy spoke to, skeleton guy, is he tried to proposition a famous or up and coming porn star.
Yeah, famous, I think, pretty famous, named Billy Bullcock.
Well, he's the hottest new thing.
Yeah. So that guy, also the guy that died, runs this bar, which Luigi knows about. Luigi's familiar. He frequents the bar. Yeah. So he goes to the bar to question them. This is where he finds out about that he was talking to Billy Bullcock. There's some Tom of Finland art that's been incorporated into the panels here, which I thought was pretty cool. So now we see this man again, the man in the leather gear, have sex with another man, and again absorbs the man completely into his body, and then spits out the bones.
Yeah.
So we've got another case.
Well, they vanish into his flies.
Yeah.
And then come out disgorged.
Yeah.
Like a python eating in reverse through his mouth. And
that's right. That's right. Yes. That's right. So we get to see the coroner, who's this like dumpy lady, typical Ralf König character. This dumpy lady, she's smoking a cigarette.
Perfectly cast in the movie.
Yeah, really. She explains that it was not, I don't know what did this. It was like not hydrochloric acid, some other kind of acid did it. She's got another corpse there that's she's more interested in, which is a guy who suffocated when his 400-pound wife sat on his face, and she wants him to look at all the pubes that are in his throat, and he's like, I'm getting out of here.
The gag also makes it into the movie.
Every gag makes it in the movie, I would say. Almost every single one. Except for the opening one. The very, very opening is not there, but we get enough of a hard, cold open anyway.
Interesting that.
I just made 2 there, hard open. Okay. So Luigi doesn't want his partner Plumley on the case. He thinks Plumley's going to be in the way. She's like, I got to get rid of Plumley. So he's like, Plumley, you're going to investigate undercover in the gay bars. We're going to dress you up in leather gear, and you're going to go investigate these places. He also says you need to put a yellow hanky in your rear right pocket. And he says leather
Plumley's
all
a bit
the
of
time.
Plumley's a bit of a straight edge.
He is very much. He has a wife and daughter that he keeps bringing up. And he's like, look, I'm not interested in this kind of... Now, I will say it's quite interesting. He's not homophobic. He's just not into this world.
He's just infuriatingly...
He's just straight.
He's just infuriatingly straight. Or like parochial, I suppose. You wouldn't say homophobic, but he's... just irritatingly normal.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to say I love this yellow hanky joke, because if you don't know what it is, which I didn't, you're like, what is this? I know it's going to be bad, because we know that Luigi's trying to get rid of him, but we have no idea what it is. Whereas if you know what it is, you're like, you know what's coming. So I think it actually works both ways.
I wonder if it's a real thing or if Ralf König invented it for the comic, but it doesn't matter because it's believable what happens.
Based on what I heard in the Horror Queers podcast, it is a real thing. Yeah.
Right. So anyway, Luigi is messing with Plumley.
Yeah.
First of all, he's dressed him up in a parody of, I suppose, leather fetish gear.
Yeah.
Like he's got hoops over his nipples. He's got straps going up and over his back. He's wearing one of the leather hats, and he's got like chaps on.
Yeah.
Like leather chaps.
Yeah.
and this yellow hanky hanging out his back pocket. So he goes to the gay bar. Everyone's made him.
Yes.
They're talking about how he's a cop.
Yes.
And then he.
In fact, in the movie, he pulls a gun on the bartender, or he almost pulls a gun on the bartender. Like, he really gives himself away. Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. In the movie, he looks fantastically uncomfortable. Yeah. It's really good.
Yeah.
It's really quite a funny scene.
Yeah.
But here, he just, he's uncomfortable. And then there's this brute. This brute catches his eye. Enormous, craggy, guy drinking a beer and burping.
Yeah.
He comes up to him and he says, I see you. I see what you've got there. I've got what you need. You come with me. And he's like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Goes with him, and then he urinates on him.
Yep.
On his face.
Yep, on his face, yeah. Okay, meanwhile, Luigi, now that he's rid of Plumley, has gone to the place that makes the pornography, the studio, to interview Billy Bullcock. They get to talking, comparing penis sizes, literally. Not in a hetero way,
This is where it's revealed.
In a I'm all alone in the world because my penis is so big way.
Yeah, neither of them are very happy because they've each. So Billy Bullcock has felt compelled to, I suppose, do sex work and pornography specifically because of the size of his penis.
Yeah.
And he's actually just he's a farm boy. He's from Iowa or something.
He's from Texas. Which is
right.
His alibi is that he was in Texas.
Trying
to get some alone time. Which to me I was like, oh man, that's far away. And I was like, no, this is set in New York. I keep forgetting it's not Berlin.
well, actually, it is far away from New York.
It is.
This is an entire continent. Well, not a whole continent, but it's quite a long way away.
I thought it was really far away. But anyway, yes. He needed time. He doesn't actually like his career because, only people only want his body. They don't care about his mind.
And he's struggling because every evening he goes out and he gets seduced.
Yeah.
And he has an unsatisfying experience. And then the next day on set, he has trouble performing. Meanwhile, Luigi is repeating his complaint from the previous book, which is that nobody is interested in him for him.
Yeah, and he's disappointed by those rent boys that he had earlier. The lack of relationship.
We learn specifically that the one who he seemed to be settling down with in the previous comic actually left him.
Yeah, this is like, Karate Kid 1 to Karate Kid 2, where suddenly the girlfriend has left, and you're like, after all that storyline that we went through, how you were meant for each other, suddenly...
Press the reset button.
Yeah, I can think of... This happens in so many movies where somebody doesn't come back. Oh, Speed is another one, because I watched Speed last night. Thinking of Speed 2, where Keanu's not in it. Yeah.
Yeah, and they just broke up. Well, here, I give this comic a little credit, especially to the Bones. They weren't alike enough. The rent boy character, he just wanted he says he just wanted a father figure that he could sleep with or something is what he said, and that it wasn't a sustainable way to have a relationship. And I thought that kind of made sense because they really did just pass in the night in that first.
Yeah.
And it was like a noir trope, the femme fatale, except instead of a femme fatale, it's a young male prostitute.
Yeah.
And it here, on the other hand, Billy Bullcock, who is, of course, the love interest in this volume, has a lot more in common with Luigi than nameless rent. Well, first of all, he has a name, so that helps.
Yeah.
And also, he's in a similar situation.
Yeah.
He's unhappy with his career, or he feels that he can't make meaningful relationships because people are obsessed with his looks or with his body or what he represents as a porn star. And Luigi says, I get you, man, because people, were obsessed with me because of my enormous junk and I'm a cop and that messes up all my relationships and so on and so forth. It's laying a bit more groundwork this time.
Yes. So they go back to Luigi's place to have sex, but they're interrupted by Plumley coming back pissed off. Because, pissed off. Get it? Pissed off.
He was pissed on.
He was pissed on. Piss on, piss off. Okay. So...
Oh, man.
Yeah.
They're interrupted. Billy leaves. He leaves a note. Very Casablanca. He leaves a note.
Yeah. So Plumley doesn't want to have anything to do with the undercover side of it anymore.
But then... Anyway, he doesn't want to be Luigi's partner anymore, actually.
Yeah.
And then Luigi gives him this impassioned speech about, look, I'm sorry, but, I actually do need you. I'm sorry I played that trick on you, but, I can't do this without you. I need my partner. Job's too big for one man alone. So there's about a page of this. And at the bottom it says, I actually didn't need him.
Yes.
I just wanted to fuck with him.
It amused me watching this bourgeois family man fumble his way through the leather scene. I'd started to like Plumley. He was so adorably naive.
Bourgeois is absolutely the word I was groping for earlier. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's the word he uses. So now we get there's another attack by this Billy Bulcock lookalike who attacks a man on the street he's about to have sex with and bites off his nose. 2 other people rescue him, but they actually pull off the top half of Bully's body. He's
so we first of all we see that when Billy Bulcock, the ersatz Billy Bulcock unzips, a tentacle comes out.
Yes.
Tentacle with like a penis head on the end.
Yeah.
And it kind of it is a mouth and latches on and swallows, like an anaconda.
Yeah.
Swallows whomever it's attacking.
Yeah.
Yes. But then someone comes, this guy screams out for help, someone comes to help. And as you said, they rip off the top. And underneath is a monster, a one-eyed monster. But not that kind of one-eyed monster. Yeah. It kind of looks like a gremlin or something with one eye. And it runs away, leaving behind the top half. Now, finally, we have some evidence.
Yes.
So the top half is taken to the lab, the mortuary, wherever it is they investigate things like that.
Yeah.
And they realize that it's an incredibly sophisticated synthetic skin.
A human epidermis that overlays a peritrophic membrane. So it looks real. So Macaroni goes to his Dr. Riffleson, this lady who reattached his finger that he had lost in the previous volume. And she says, well, there was a scientist who maybe is not alive anymore named Professor Boris Smirnov. It kind of doesn't make sense that she leads him to Smirnov given what is revealed later on.
Yeah.
But she's like, go see Smirnov. He talks to the guy that had his nose bitten off. And the guy's like, yeah, it looked like Billy Bulcock, the guy that attacked me. Meanwhile, we get a scene which is not in the movie, which I quite liked, where Plumley's going around like looking at his family, his wife, thinking about all the things that happened and the things he saw at the bar.
He just keeps seeing specifically that. Yeah. He keeps seeing in his mind's eye the sex acts that were occurring in the leather bar, and specifically the brute. Yes. The brute standing over him, urinating on him.
It's a bit like cruising as
clearly,
well. Yeah.
He's clearly being tormented by these thoughts, and not necessarily in a negative way.
Yeah.
So there's some hidden depths there.
Yeah. So they go to Smirnov's house. Smirnov is now senile. He keeps asking for berry pudding. I want berry pudding. He has a Asian butler who reminded me a bit of James Hong in Chinatown, who, the Asian butler, that trope, I think, is what's happening here.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
And
he's his handler.
Yes. So this guy keeps begging for berry pudding, and they're like, well, he's out of his mind, so we can't interview him. He's no use as a witness. But as they're leaving, Luigi notices he has a gay magazine hidden in his robe. He's in a wheelchair. But
not just any gay magazine, it's a gay porn magazine.
Yes.
And on the front cover is Billy Bulcock.
Yes.
They realize that the professor is not as senile as he appears.
Yeah.
And that he's signaling them with this magazine.
Yes.
So they go back.
By the way, Boris Smirnov, what a great name. Like a Luigi Macaroni, this is a perfect name for a Russian scientist.
Yes. Anyway, they go back to rescue him. He's still obsessed with berry pudding for some reason. And they revealed that he's been kidnapped and taken prisoner and forced to work on these creations. So he created the killer condom of the previous comic. And he has also created, what's the name of the creature?
Oh,
is it called Eagle?
Oh, no, I can't remember. Raoul?
Oh, something like that.
It's Raoul.
Raoul. Yes, right. Close. I guess it's kind of like Igor, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, Anyway, so he loves Raoul. And even Raoul himself is a prototype. And
by the way, so if you haven't noticed, there's been no mention of the killer condoms really in this volume. It's not been about the killer condoms. We have a new monster that Luigi Macaroni has been fighting, but we do get.
Although people do.
Yeah, they're talking about him as the killer condom killer, or But it does come back here. It's revealed that this same outfit that has created these new mutants that are eating people with the tentacle penis are the same people that created the killer condom.
That's so.
And it's the lady Riffelson, Dr. Riffelson, his doctor, who's behind it.
Because she shows up. Yeah. She's a fanatic. Yeah. Of some sort. She is I think I've got the quote, I think. We have a caption from Luigi. He says, "So that was the explanation. A radical feminist religious fanatic enslaved the genial genetic chemist to prepare the way for the second coming. Why hadn't I thought of it sooner?"
Yeah.
And it is Ralph. Yes. So, Riffelson behind it all. She's like a Puritan that thinks the second coming is nigh. And she's created or forced to create or caused to create these things so that they will attack those she perceives as sinners.
Yes. She thinks including people he's gone, because the Pope's about to come to the U.S. on a visit. And so she's like, well, hey, we can get rid of people that use condoms by making a condom that bites their dicks off. That's like the solution to stop people using condoms. So she's
not in favor of, so I guess she's Catholic. Yeah. But she's not in favor of contraceptives generally. And she's also infuriated by people that indulge in casual sexual liaisons.
And masturbation. There's a bit about onan and spilling seed as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Hence why the hunting grounds of the original Killer Condom was the Hotel Quickie, because its clientele were all people that she considered to be sinners for various reasons. Yeah. Anyway.
Chaos ensues.
They say, chaos ensues. Yeah, chaos ensues. Riffelson gets her face melted off.
Yep.
Raoul has his tentacle penis chopped off. Everybody dies. Yep. Well, actually, no. Riffelson doesn't die. She's institutionalized.
Right. I think. The butler is eaten by one of the creatures. I think by the tentacle penis, not the condom. The killer condom.
No, the condom's no longer around. Yeah.
Oh, the condom goes up into Riffelson, and then she shrieks.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, the condom's back. Yeah, you're right, because it turns out that Riffelson is a transsexual. Woman in.
I think it's crossdresser. I think they just say. I don't think. Well,
87. The word transsexual probably wasn't very mainstream at that point.
Yeah, that's true.
But so they say transvestite, but she's clearly someone whose religious fanaticism is part of a repressed kind of like hatred of her masculinity.
Yeah, the condom and the tentacle monster basically kill each other. They have a face off.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Billy and Luigi kind of wander off into the sunset together.
Yes.
They're going to go to Sicily and meet his mother.
Yes, that's right. He's finally decided he's going to tell the truth to his mother. So that's kind of it. Yeah.
That's much, much longer than I ever thought I would talk about either of those comics.
Well, I think it was important to talk about them because this movie, I think, is pretty close to the first comic, especially. As we mentioned before, like a lot of gags, details, it's all in there with a couple of changes. So this movie came out in 1996 initially, was not released in the US until 98 when Troma picked up distribution rights a couple of years later. Yeah. But we just had a 4K digital re-release, a Blu-ray release from Vinegar Syndrome last year, which is the version that we watched. And that's a director's cut, which has like 10 extra minutes in it.
Excellent.
Director is Martin Walz.
That's right. He co-wrote the screenplay with Ralf König himself.
Although apparently König is not very happy with it.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I think he was disappointed with it. And also Giger, H.R. Giger, who is a quote-unquote creative consultant.
We roll credits, and the first thing I noticed is, as you point out, is that the credits say creative consultant HR Giga, and I thought, holy shit.
Yeah.
Are we in for something here?
Yeah.
Because, what's some films that Giga's consulted on before? Alien.
Yeah.
Even
the bad ones like Species, I mean, that thing is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you'll notice it's creative consultant because he actually had his credit reduced. So he loved the comic. He knew about it. He already was familiar with it. They came to him and said, "You want to do this?" He's like, "Oh my God, yeah." And apparently, König had done some sort of like puppet show version of it, which Giger had watched and was like, "This is amazing." And he was like, he signed on to do it. They only had a month before production started, I think, and he did hundreds of drawings. But then they were like not listening to his ideas or whatever. He had his credit reduced to creative consultant instead of like creature design by or something like that because he wanted to be less associated with it.
Well, I can imagine because I was looking everywhere for something Giger-esque and there's nothing.
Yeah,
the condoms themselves. I mean, the condoms are just someone just stuck teeth on the end of the condoms. You don't need Giger to come up with a way to make it a condom that eats people. It doesn't. There's not a frame of this film that I felt.
Look, I'm looking at
like something Giger would do.
So I've got 4 or 5 Giger art books here in my office. One of them is www.hrgiger.com. He's got a chapter in here on Killer Condom, and he's drawn a thing which looks like the scene in the lab with the people tied up over the pit. So, it seems like
some of it made it in, I guess.
I guess, but he was, I think, specifically like a lot of the lab. He's got tons of lab designs in here. They weren't really. You can see shadows of it in the movie, but obviously they didn't have the money or time to
that's it. I mean,
fully produce these designs.
Giger, I'd be cross too.
Yeah.
But I don't think this film had a high budget.
No.
And a lot of it went on this lab.
Yeah.
Which they've tried hard with, but it just looks like generic B-movie sci-fi lab.
Yeah.
And doesn't look like biomechanical Giger-esque monstrosity lab.
That's true.
Because they didn't have a budget of millions and millions of dollars in a year or something. Yes. So it's a shame, but not really surprising, I suppose.
Yeah. So our movie.
So this is pretty much runs just like you said. It's exactly like the start of the comic. Not like the start of the comic because we chop off those first 10 pages.
Chop off.
Instead, we dismember the initial 6 or however many pages it is with the really weird scene with the guy in the toilet, etc. Yeah. And instead, we start with the girl and her teacher.
Yeah.
Who's as you say, trying to force her into having sex with him.
Dialogue's almost the same. Even the moment down at the reception where he turns back to go to the reception and ask if they have condoms is all straight out of the condoms.
He asks, "Is there a condom machine?" Which in German appears to be "Preservative Automat." Actually, all through this film, I started to all through this film, I started to think, "Whoa, am I learning German?" But actually, I think because the film's set in New York, they use a lot of English.
Well, I'm not sure. I don't know, but I will say if you take a drink every time someone says the word condom, you will die of alcohol poisoning.
Yes.
By the way, this movie the director's cut is almost 2 hours.
Yeah, it's really long.
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoyed it, but it's long.
Yeah. It's 2 movies. That's why it is 2 movies. I think.
Well,
I think you get the first movie.
It's definitely the length of 2 movies.
I think there's
two. I think they do a pretty good job of integrating the 2 stories.
They kind of do, yeah. We'll talk about that, yeah.
Anyway, the young girl, who incidentally is played by a German pop singer.
Okay. She looked about 28, but she's supposed to be a teenager. But when she starts bawling and you see her braces, you feel really bad. You're like, oh geez, this is rough. This is much rougher than the Bigfoot cartooning in the comic. Even knowing that this actress did not look 14 or 15 or 19, but it was still like, holy cow. But then when the condom bites off his schlong and we get the opening title card, I was like, here we go. Because it's her scream is the audio. You get blood dripping down off the font saying Killer Condom in German in the font used by König.
Yep.
Over 2 American flags. I was like, here we go. I'm all in.
Yeah, I was all in as well. Although it did occur to me, although it becomes clear, so first it seems like the condom has saved her from being assaulted.
Yes.
But actually, it kind of really just made her life worse because now she's in a police station accused of biting off a professor's dick.
Yes.
And of course, her parents show up. So we have this great scene where she's being interviewed and she's in tears and she describes what happens. And then at the end, she said, "Is sex always like that?"
Oh, yeah. She was a virgin, too. Jesus. That detail was not in the comic.
Her parents show up who look hilarious. This time they're from Oklahoma, not Pennsylvania.
Oh, yeah. Farmville, Oklahoma. Dad's wearing a cowboy hat.
Are they literally from...
It's called Farmville.
Are they really from Farmville?
That's what the translation was, yeah.
And, yeah, like he's wearing a Stetson cowboy hat and the mother's wearing like a bonnet.
Yes.
Like pilgrim bonnet.
Yes.
Great.
I like that. That was a good change from Philadelphia, I thought. Yeah,
I agree. And this film apparently has quite a lot of big name German actors in it.
Right. Okay.
Because I recognize the guy that plays the father, Mr. Higgins.
Okay.
He's in Das Boot.
Right.
He's in the first scene in the French bar.
Okay.
He's the captain that's being awarded with the medal, the one that drinks himself into a stupor and says, "I'm in no condition to fuck."
Okay.
So I was like, whoa, what's he doing here? Playing the father of the violated schoolgirl in this shitty movie.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, the opening credit did say based on the comics by Ralf König. So this is the first time in a few weeks we've had an admission that it was based on comics, but also even the poster used Koenig's art on it. So this is like a big deal that they had got. Although this was this is the second movie based on his comics. We will be doing another one. But there's a third one as well, which is it's a Spanish movie based on Lysistrata. He had done a comic on the Lysistrata, so.
Wow, that's bonkers.
Yeah, and he's written another movie as well. So he knows the cinema language too.
Well, he's a big deal.
Yeah.
And people in Germany know his stuff.
Yeah.
And that's why I suppose so many of these actors who are apparently name actors in Germany signed up for this project.
Yeah.
And they're not afraid to promote it as based on the comics of Ralf König. They don't try to dress it up as a short story or as the visual art or the characters created by. No. They just laid it right out there. And this is, of course, long before Marvel.
Yeah.
So clearly it's a different milieu in Germany.
Yeah.
The words detective and inspector are used interchangeably in this movie. I guess they're the same in German as they are in English.
I don't know. I noticed in the German they always said inspector, but the subtitles I think always said detective. I thought.
Well, every now and again they do say detective. So I mean, no, you're right. The subtitles always say detective, but the dialogue will variably say inspector and detective, and without rhyme or reason.
Yeah.
So any German speakers want to shed any light on that, I'd be interested. Anyway, he much like in the comic, he lays it out for Mr. and Mrs. Farmville, Oklahoma, and again they're stupefied. The mother passes out, does a flop take.
Yeah.
The guy who plays Luigi Macaroni is great.
Yes.
Again, he's just so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
He leaves the police station and we get some, much like in the comics, some fantastic noir dialogue.
Yep.
Where he daydreams about the wind through the cypresses on his native Sicily.
Yes.
Yes.
There's more in the comics. The second one has more Sicily stuff. There's not much in the first one. In this one, we've got the Sicily stuff early on, so it's a through line.
Right out the bat.
Yeah.
And he's got this great line, which I'll have to paraphrase, which is something like, "Oh, New York, this place is so terrible. Even farm girls from Oklahoma are biting dicks off professors after they've been here a while."
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So this feels already this has got. I feel like this has got something on the comic because we can actually hear a noir monologue in real time.
Yes.
As opposed to just reading one. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So he goes to the Hotel Quickie as before. We get the voiceover as you mentioned. He sees a drag show now. There's a drag show in the second volume of the comics, not in the first, and he's really kind of annoyed by it. The drag show is run by this trans woman named Babette, who he constantly dead names Bob, but she constantly calls him Lolly to his annoyance.
Yeah.
So neither of them will call each other what they want to be called. They had a previous one night stand or something, and she's obsessed with him. He doesn't want to have anything to do with her. But so she's a bit like the Fred character who was in one panel of the comic, but she's a major character in this. A major new character.
This is a character.
Yeah.
This is a throwaway character from the comic that they've spun into a
full character,
a full character, and one of the more important characters in the film.
Yeah.
It's just it's like 6 foot tall, masculine man who's just constantly in drag, and therein lies the joke, I suppose.
Yes. So,
but it turns out that Bob, used to be a cop, or she,
yes,
Bob.
That's right.
Babette, as she prefers to be called. She was a cop formerly.
Yeah.
So when everything starts to go down, she can handle herself quite well.
Yeah. That's right. That's true. Yeah. Now we meet the rent boy, the handsome rent boy, in the lobby. In this one, he's given the name Billy. So we've had a conflation of the two characters here.
Exactly. That's exactly what's happened.
In fact, basically, Bully Bullcock has been removed, and we've given this nameless character a name now, which is Billy, effectively.
Yes, it's I suppose, because, well, he is a lot more like the nameless rent boy than he is like the character of Billy Bullcock.
Yeah.
So we only have time in this movie, despite it being 2 hours long, for one romance.
Yeah.
So the two characters have been merged.
That's right.
But he is more like the character from Killer Condom than he is like the one from Down to the Bones.
Yes. Yes. So Luigi hires Billy. They go up to the room. Plays out almost exactly the same. The conversation about "Are you a cop?" kind of stuff, and
he says, "Don't you fuck?" And then he says, "Don't you?" He says, "What? You don't fuck cops?" And then he grabs his crotch. This is Luigi grabs Billy's crotch. It's like, that's pretty full on. But that's about as full on as the film gets.
Yes.
Then he disrobes Luigi, that is, and I laughed out loud. We see an enormous shadow.
Yes, this is actually well played, I think. A huge shadow that rises across Billy's face.
It's across his entire upper torso, really. And he's in awe.
Yeah.
And, he says, like, wow, that's huge. And Luigi's like, 32 centimeters exactly.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Then another thing that's great, they embrace and they start to become busy. And here we have this great thing with the killer condom itself on the dresser. The puppetry of the condoms is pretty good. Yeah. It moves around.
I thought it was really funny when the thing was zipping around and stuff. Yeah. I enjoyed it. And by the way, it's got two forms. It's got like its regular rolled up form, which is just a normal. Yep. It's weird. I don't know how
when it looks indistinguishable. Yeah. When it looks indistinguishable from a real condom, so it's got a disguised form, and then it unrolls to its attack form, which is where it has the mouthful of razor fangs.
Yeah.
But when it's in its rolled up form, whoever's doing, it'd be a stretch to describe it as a puppet. Whoever's manipulating the prop is doing a good job.
Yeah.
Because it seems to have a personality.
It does. It really does.
With its squeaks, it wants to be picked. When it's not picked and they decide to use Billy's condoms that he's brought there, it's disappointed. It cringes and goes. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it pretty much plays the same way.
Yeah.
They spot it moving. It hides under the dresser.
Yeah.
Luigi goes to try and fish it out. It leaps out, bites off one of his bollocks.
Yes.
Again, cut to the hospital room.
Yeah, there's a big no smoking sign behind him, and he's smoking a cigarette, and he's got his sunglasses back on.
He doesn't take off his sunglasses.
Then the police chief, Sam, comes in. It's not Sam, it's his partner comes in.
Yep.
And there's another guy in the room with him, Sam. And the other guy flatlines. While the guy, and he doesn't care about him. The partner just goes straight to Luigi's. Like, we hear the flatline beep going in the background. It's played really well, actually.
Yeah. Here, his partner is Sam. So not Plumley.
Yeah.
So Sam was the police captain in the comics.
Right. They changed the names around a bit.
Here he is his partner.
Yeah.
The police captain still exists. And I think he might be nameless, but otherwise is very much the police character cliche. He's, God damn it, Luigi!
Yeah.
You know?
Yes, exactly.
Can't have this crap about condoms getting out.
Yes.
Yeah. Then we get a montage of people's dicks getting bitten off.
Yeah.
Again,
and again,
unlike the comics,
it's the same. Riffleson visits him in the hospital, so she's introduced right away. He doesn't get visited by Billy in the hospital in this version. Instead, it's Riffleson that comes in, which establishes her early on. But when he goes back to the station, we get the line about the 13 dicks have been bit off while he was in hospital. Sam, of course, doesn't move.
Oh, and no one believes him yet.
And when we get the voiceover about all the crazy stuff that happens, why can't killer condoms happen? We get mentions of stuff like mad cow disease. There's no mention of AIDS in the movie. Interestingly. No. They've taken that out. And they don't mention cruising explicitly, even though those things are explicitly mentioned in the comic. Explicit. By the way, when he's walking around, there's some Asian man watching him sometimes.
He's trying to interest the police in the station in the case, but none of them think they think the rent boy, they think Billy bit him.
They put up a wanted poster which says he's wanted for crimes against nature. Now, that was interesting to me. It's like, is it the homosexuality or the biting off of a penis? It seems to be a double play.
I looked it up. In the in America, sodomy, the crime of sodomy used to be referred to, or just sexual perversion generally, was referred to as crimes against nature.
Yeah, I agree, but I think they're going for two here. I think it works both ways.
But biting off a nut is the crime against nature.
Yeah. So he goes to Billy's apartment, which is not his apartment. I say it's like a hovel. He's got like posters on the wall of Beavis and Butthead and the Chili Peppers one where they've got socks on their cocks. He's got a Miss Piggy toy there as well. All kinds of weird random stuff. But Billy's not there. So we don't have the reconnection with Billy at this point, which we had in the comic. He goes home to have the shower. In this case, it really plays out like... It's interesting because the comic is doing movie stuff, but it's not a movie. Here we get like the actual Psycho music. It is a movie. We get the Psycho music in the shower.
Yeah.
But this plays out a little bit differently because it's Babette that shows up. Again, not Billy, who's kind of disappeared from the movie at this stage. She comes in with a knife in her purse, and it really plays out like Psycho, even more so than the comic, because Billy, of course, didn't show up with that knife, dressed as a woman.
Yeah, because, of course, Norman Bates dresses like a woman famously when he commits his murders.
Yes.
And this time it's Bob/Babette.
Yeah.
Showing up. It's good.
Yeah, so the condom is in Babette's purse. So that's how it's traveled here.
Because she's brought them. Well, she's brought them.
Yeah.
She stopped by the Hotel Quickie to grab, because she wants to sleep with Luigi. She's obsessed with Luigi.
Yeah.
She has all this patter about how her therapist says that they're soulmates and that he's in denial because she reminds him of his mother or something like that. And it's all just...
Right.
It's really funny and just sounds like the rantings of a crazy person. It's really good.
Yeah.
Anyway, she shows up, and anyway, the purse is moving. It's like, what's in your purse? Did you get condoms from the Hotel Quickie? And she's like, yeah. He's like, oh, it's here. The damn thing's here. And he shoots holes in the purse, and she says, it's real crocodile leather.
Yeah.
And then it's much like the the comic, but with a crucial difference. So once again, they trick it with the gas hose, because he has a hose that runs from his gas stove. But this time, Bob with his huge, or Babette with her enormous cop hands, breaks off the valve that controls the flow of gas, and the condom, instead of them being able to tie it off, it keeps inflating until it explodes. So Luigi does not shoot it down in the distance. So this time they have remains, and they take it to the lab.
And it's very much like the facehugger scene in Alien when they cut it apart.
Yes, it is.
And we have a really good prop of this thing that they've cut open, much like the facehugger.
Yep.
Where they're examining it. This is, I think the coroner is Wilma in this scene. Because we get the gag about the man whose wife sat on his face, and they don't know if it's murder or accidental or what was going on there. The same gag about the pubes is in there, pretty much.
Yeah. This is the coroner, the sloppy kind of like chain smoking, overweight coroner.
Yes.
Perfectly cast.
Yeah.
Really great.
Yes. Now there's a scene here of Luigi reminiscing about Sicily, and we get lots of shots of Sicily. This was actually awesome, because they finally, after all this reminiscing, they cut away and you see he's looking at a poster in a travel agent window, which I thought was so clever. I think they were actually trying to get to film in Sicily and they couldn't do it, so they had to substitute the posters instead.
Maybe.
They actually shot a few scenes in New York, and apparently it was all done guerrilla style with no licenses.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Apparently they were...
Well, yeah, clearly. There were definite scenes in New York. In one, in fact, that I thought was green screen, and then he steps off the curb and walks out into traffic, and like, whoa, that's not a green screen.
Yeah.
They actually filmed this in New York.
Yeah. So...
And of course, there's English everywhere, so there's no German in this movie aside from the dialogue.
That's right.
All the posters,
like
all
the
the
wanted
signs,
poster,
no smoking.
Yeah.
Everything's in English.
Yes, that's right. So we think at this point that the monster is dead, but in fact, very soon we see all sorts of condoms coming up out of the sewer. And there's actually a bunch of them, not just one. So now we've had a substitution of the tentacle monster from Volume 2 with just a mass more condoms.
This time a swarm of condoms.
Yeah. So it's almost like you're getting Alien and Aliens in one movie.
That's a great comparison. Excellent.
So there's a tourist in a park, and a condom jumps out of the garbage and attacks her nose. And there's a politician who's running for president whose name is Dick McGovern. This is, again, a great name like Boris Smirnoff and Luigi Macaroni. I love Dick McGovern.
Dick McGovern. So he's running on a squeaky clean...
He's running on a Make America... It's literally...
Make America Great Again.
Yeah, the subtitle says, like, Make America Strong Again, is what the subtitle reads as, that's his platform. Meanwhile...
he's running as one of those Bible-thumping... kind of like religious revivalists.
Yes.
So made a lot more sense in the 90s than today, what with Trump the standard bearer for the Republican Party.
Yes.
But also, he's also secretly a sleazy guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a character that you see a lot in
there's nothing
fiction.
new happening here. But it's fun.
It was funny that it is funny that he was saying "Make America this again, make America that again."
Yeah.
You can't help but make the comparisons. Yeah. We're all haunted by the...
Yeah. He actually looked a bit like the Ronnie Cox president from Captain America, if anybody remembers that far back. He's a bit like that, except he's a sleazebag in private. Yeah. So Luigi Macaroni visits Babette, who is getting ready for a drag show at the Quickie Hotel. Yeah. And he does make a comment like, boy, that thing we went through, that was really a horror movie. He does say that, much like the comic says, this is a horror movie. Babette reveals that the location of the hotel, the Quickie Hotel, used to be a church. Billy is also there. We haven't seen Billy in a while. He comes and goes in this movie. But he has sex with Luigi in the elevator. And they keep the elevator stuck. And the people outside, all the Johns and prostitutes, are waiting to get on. They're annoyed. Finally, when Billy and Luigi are done, they come out of the elevator. And people saw that they're having sex in there. And they applaud instead of being annoyed. Now, I have to say, this movie... Again, I don't know if things are different in Germany in '96, but this movie is strangely like sex positive. And also there's nothing,
very. Yeah.
And there's no comment on the fact of Luigi being a homosexual. It's just a non thing. There's no gay jokes.
Quote unquote, yeah, you're right. Even his quote unquote homophobic partner Sam never really says or does anything homophobic.
To him, yeah.
Every now and again, he'll just say something like, "Oh, isn't that the type you go for?"
Yeah,
or something like that. Which he does because he's gay.
Yes, it's all very matter of fact. It's really, I think for '96, if this was Hollywood, it would blow your mind. Again, I wish I knew what the German scene was like, but it was straight. The scene where they come out of the elevator, I was clapping. I was like, "This movie is something else. Something is going on here." Okay, so now we get the president again. He's in the bathtub. There's a little rubber duck in the bath, which is floating along, which I thought was hilarious. He's got this sexy
secretary,
wife,
I suppose.
But she's on the news.
Oh, no.
Or no, she's on the news. She's in the police station talking about it openly.
I think she's it's a bit ambiguous.
Yeah.
She might be a pro.
Yeah. But this was a scene where she starts doing a striptease for him, and she does not take her top off. You know what I mean? Like, there's no nudity. I was really surprised. It's not a trauma movie. It's a trauma acquisition, right? So.
Yes, right. It's not actually. No. You'll have to explain trauma at some point. But you're right. I mean, I think I'm inclined to think that they're making a point of it, that the only nudity we see in the entire film is two
men's butts,
male rear ends.
Yeah. And
one of whom is not in particularly good shape.
He's got a dad bod. He's a real '96 dad bod, is what this guy has.
Yeah.
So the president is attacked because the condom is floating.
He's a presidential candidate. Well, it bites off his.
Yeah, it's a presidential candidate. That's right.
And we have the classic gag, his Secret Service or his bodyguards or whatever outside the door, hearing him screaming and hearing his call girl / secretary screaming, and they're just exchanging knowing glances.
Yeah, and they're smiling at each other. Again, we've seen it before, but I don't know why I didn't mind it seeing it again.
It's damn funny.
Yeah, it played out. It played out the way, they're like,
So now, much like in the comic, now people are taking the case seriously.
It's in the news. We get a montage here of people learning about it and stuff, and lots of. There's a moment here I love, which is not in the comic, which is a kid in a playground picks up a condom, like a used condom in the playground, and takes it to his mom, and his mom is like freaking out and running away because there's now we know these killer condoms are out there in public.
Yep. That's right. Yeah, this time, unlike the comic, the condoms are out. Everybody knows what they are because one's been dissected.
Yes. And
it's assaulted a high-profile presidential candidate. Yes.
Yeah. So
a point of difference.
Meanwhile, a scientist named Boris Smirnov has been kidnapped, and the people at the station, the cops, are looking at this videotape about this guy. His back history, word for word out of the comic, like the place he was born, the year, all that stuff, straight out of the comic. But the chief comes in and says, "Why are you guys watching this stuff? We've got a president that's been attacked by a killer condom. You guys need to go out there." So this is like the young guy, the young scion from the comic has been replaced by the president here.
Except this time it's the nominee. Well, it's not the president. He's a presidential candidate.
Yes, sorry. Yeah. So now he wants them on the case. The chief is the one that orders Plumley Sam to go undercover in the leather bars. But again,
first he orders Luigi to go undercover.
But Luigi uses the same logic as in the comic.
Yeah, he says he says no, and he goes, "What do you mean?" Again, I thought that was your deal. Yeah. No judgment, just hey, you're gay. Aren't you the best person to go undercover in a gay bar? And he says, "No, that's precisely the problem. Because I'm gay, they know who I am. It needs to be someone they don't
I hang
know.
out there already.
How about Sam?
Yeah.
And Sam, he's not into it.
Yeah.
Again, he's a bit like he insists on the fact that he has a wife and kids.
Yes. But we don't see the wife and kids in the movie. We don't get that scene.
No, because in the comic she was a member of the cult.
Yes.
And hadn't been having sex with him for many years. And that was sort of
right.
But in this, none of that's there. It's just, like Sam's just being messed with by Luigi. And again, he puts the yellow handkerchief in his back pocket. But this time he specifically tells him, this yellow handkerchief means you are not interested in having sex tonight. You're just there for the atmosphere or whatever.
Wait a second. I think the wife is in the cult in the movie, not in the comic.
No, it's definitely in the comic.
But in the comic, at the end, when he realizes something has awakened in him and he starts meeting with gay men, he says, I'll tell my wife tomorrow. So he's still with his wife.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, sure.
Right.
But it was definitely implied that she was a member of the...
You're right. Okay.
She'd been withholding sex from him because she thought the apocalypse
Yes, you're right. Yes, you're right. Okay. Yeah.
So, so in this... rather more believably, because if someone put a handkerchief in my pocket if I was about to go somewhere, I'd be very fucking suspicious.
Well, he gives him... Yes, you're right.
He tells him that it's the opposite of what it actually is.
It means that you're not up for sex. Yeah, is what Luigi tells to Sam. Yeah.
And we get a great scene in the leather bar. Sam is just radiating discomfort.
Yes.
Unease.
Yeah.
Horror. And as he's brushing up against all these half-dressed men in leather who are sweating, and I can almost feel the mugginess of the scene pouring off the screen. Anyway, he goes up to the bar. There's some funny little bits, like he sees a very intimidating, gruff-looking fellow who, and then that gruff-looking fellow spies his partner, and it turns out he's very femme, because he goes, oh! And he preens and flops his wrists around, just a funny moment. And he's at the bar, still uncomfortable. In fact, he sees a stool, and this stool is an absolute lifeline for him. It's pretty well shot. We keep getting close-ups of the stool. And someone will go to get close to the stool, and he'll tense up, and then they'll move away, and he'll keep getting closer and closer. Then finally sits down, and he starts relaxing a little bit. And then, as you mentioned earlier, the barman taps him on the shoulder, and he jumps out of the stool, turns around, pulls a gun out of his waistband. Or partway out of his waistband. Yeah. But the barman's just got a liter of beer for him in a great big stein. And he points, and it's this kind of a middle-aged or slightly older guy with a grey beard, also dressed up in leather.
Who we had seen,
and he's very flirty.
We'd seen before.
Yes, we'd seen him
on the monitor. Which I don't know if you described that scene, but that plays out like the comic.
Yeah, again, it's like the comic.
That's an important scene because that's where the filled condom, escapes down the hallway.
Yeah, you're right.
In a crazy moment of puppeteering.
And he's watching the monitors with Babette.
Yes.
Who is revealed is that's when we find out that Babette used to be a cop.
Yes.
Yes. So they were watching this man with the grey beard, and who was in a very embarrassing position. Anyway, now here he is in the bar, and Sam's like, "Oh God, how do I get out of this?" And then he remembers. The kerchief, the yellow kerchief.
Yes.
And so he turns around and flirtatiously kind of flips it around, and
as if to say, "I'm not available."
And the greybeard nods and grins. And anyway, that's where that scene ends.
Yeah. So we learn back at the police station there's this cop named Sally Taylor. She's a really funny character too. She has investigated this bit about the church being on the grounds. For some reason, Luigi has latched onto this fact. Yeah. Where the hospital, or is it where the?
Yes. So it's the hospital where Rifflestein works.
Yes.
It used to be a church, but the church was demolished, the hospital was built on the grounds. Yeah. There was a lot of community opposition to the church being demolished, but it turns out that the then councilman for that borough rushed it through, and it turns out that the councilman was none other than Dick McGovern.
Dick McGovern, yeah. So, meanwhile, the lady who had her nose bitten off, the tourist, she's in the chapel of the hospital, and she sees the condom come out and like a trap door to a secret lair.
Well, the altar moves in half and reveals a secret staircase. It's pretty groovy.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where the other half of the budget
and
went.
that Asian man comes out and traps the condom in a bag and takes it away. She goes
to the police station. She's trying to convince.
One of the things I really liked about all the police station scenes was all the other cops were always standing around watching the conversations. For some reason, I really dug this. They were all like curious about what Luigi Macaroni was up to and his case.
I agree. Normally in a scene like that, the director would be saying, you're reading files, you're on the phone.
Yes.
You're doing police business, but no, they're
always
just
staring. They're all just
standing
staring.
And watching.
And they're really like interesting characters too. Like they all seem really varied. It was really interesting.
Well, that character you mentioned, the woman that did the research on the church.
Yeah, Sally Taylor.
That was Sally Taylor. She's another famous German actor.
Oh, I guess that because there's a scene where she comes to interrogate a man. And she just makes faces at him, and his hair literally raises like a Looney Tunes cartoon or something. Yeah.
She's a comedian specifically.
Right.
Yeah.
So this tourist comes to the station. Luigi figures out. She talks about some Asian man that was at the hospital, and something happened at the hospital. He goes there. He interviews. What was her name? The doctor. Riffelson. He says, "Is there an Asian man that works in this hospital?" She says, "No." She says there are 1 billion Asians and Chinese people in China. Surely, you've seen one around, But for me, to me, I think in 1996 for a hospital in New York to not have a single Asian man there, it seems a bit unusual.
Yeah, of course. But here
Yeah.
Well, she's trying to get him out. She doesn't want him around.
Yeah.
So I guess we could say that she's just saying whatever she thinks, whatever you can think of to get him out.
Yes.
So Luigi's run off half-cocked. He's heard the word chapel or the word hospital because this tourist, as you mentioned, she doesn't speak German.
Yes.
Or which I suppose is supposed to be English here. Instead, she speaks some Slavic language, probably Russian. And surprise, surprise, Billy shows up at the police station looking for Luigi, and it turns out that he can speak the language that tourists speak, and he can provide translation. So that's how we get him back in the story.
Yeah.
And they all head off to the hospital where we have the big showdown.
Yes.
So, but discover the stairs under the altar. Luigi goes down. He enters this kind of like vault of horror. It's not what Giga planned for it, but it's still pretty groovy.
Yeah.
There's bubbling flasks.
Yeah.
There's a big
Smirnoff's down there.
Smirnoff's down there. Still
By the
obsessed
way,
with.
One of my favorite lines was when they're watching the video of Smirnoff. They learned that his daughter was getting letters from him, postcards from the Bahamas, but the daughter said that makes no sense because he's always hated nice weather.
Nice.
So Smirnoff's down there. Riffelson shows up, I think, at this point. Or she holds a gun. She holds a gun.
Except now he calls it red jelly.
Red jelly. It might be some kind of German dessert that can be translated either way.
I would say so. But there's something going on with this. That it's drugged or something.
Right. In the comic, it's drugged. That's why they're keeping him
in the
addicted.
comic, they say that
they're putting something.
Luigi
in it.
actually says, "What did you put in it to make him want it so bad?"
Yeah.
And Riffelson says, "Just wait till you find out," and we never find out.
Oh, right. Well, I guess the
the
implication is that
jelly.
they were going to put him on the same. No, I don't know.
I don't know. I'm sad I never found out what they were putting in the jelly.
Yeah.
But yeah, this lab is pretty cool. There's machinery, things going up and down, bubbly flasks, terraniums.
They've got like it looks like almost like an open Iron Maiden that they're flinging the condoms at. It's this thing with spikes on it. That's in the Giger design. I'm not sure what it's supposed to be exactly.
It's supposed to be some Giger-esque horror.
It's
a bottle with all the condoms living in it, and they have suspended people that Luigi care about.
Yeah.
So they've managed at some point off screen, they've managed to collect everyone Luigi cares about except Billy. So Sam's there, Babette, the tourist with her bitten off nose, the proprietor of the hotel, Quickie.
Yeah.
They're all dangling over this pool with
all the worst scum of society according to Riffelson.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. Who also just happen to be people that
we're in the movie
Luigi knows personally.
Yes.
Yeah, and we're in the movie already. Yes. She reveals to Luigi that she's saved a very special killer condom for him, and there's one that's about 10 times the size of the others. Yeah. It has tusks as well as fangs, and it's salivating and growling. And at gunpoint, she forces him to unzip so that it will come out and eat him, bite his dick off. But then in the nick of time, Billy appears, distracts the doctor. Luigi wrestles the gun away from her. There's a big shootout with the Asian man and with the doctor and Luigi all running around shooting one another. The Asian man is subdued. He never even gets a single line of dialogue nor a name.
Yeah.
Luigi manages to free everyone dangling over the pool, and he talks the doctor down with an impassioned speech.
She's about to kill herself. She's got the gun to her head too.
No, she's got her gun to Billy's head. So she
wasn't she gonna? Oh, afterwards she's gonna kill herself after his speech.
Yeah. We get to that.
Sorry. Yes.
So she has a gun to Billy's head, and she's like, throw the gun down, Luigi, get your dick out and get eaten by this killer condom. And he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And then he gives this passionate speech about, kind of accepting oneself and about, love and how it doesn't matter what your orientation is as long as you feel love. And we have literal kind of like seraphim wandering around in the background.
Yes.
Like children with angel wings.
Yes.
And it's all, he even says.
He interrupts it with a voiceover, yeah.
And it's diegetic light because he says, this light is a bit distracting.
Yes. This halo-like light.
Yeah. So people have wandered down from the mental hospital above. They're just dressed in bathrobes and they're just sort of standing around it, milling around in the background as his kind of like angelic chorus. And she's broken by his speech. She lets Billy go. She tries to shoot herself, but it's not a real gun. It's a pretend gun that we'd seen in a scene earlier when Luigi visited Billy's apartment / hovel.
Yeah.
All it does is shoot a little flag that says, I love you.
Yes.
She sees that and then she throws herself into the pond with all the condoms and presumably expires.
Yes.
And then that's it. The film winds up. Billy and Luigi are together now.
Sam ends up going with Babette.
Sort of. Babette kind of fixates on him instead of Luigi. And Sam's still not really.
I think, it's unlike the comic, I think is what
unlike
you're
the comic,
say.
He's not.
It's actually kind of a deep moment. It feels like in the comic, somebody that Ralf König knew. Like, I knew this guy that was kind of like keeping it secret from his wife and had he had awakened this part of himself. Yeah. Plays out. It's less.
It's a bit different.
Yeah.
It's just that Babette's just found a new person to fixate on. Sam's doesn't want a bar of it. She's chasing him into the taxi. Luigi and Billy stroll off down the street in New York. And he talks about taking him to meet his mother in Sicily.
Yeah. By the way, Sam only had his leg peed on.
You're right. I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten about that. Yeah, another way in which the film tones it down, which
Yeah.
don't think I hate.
No, I
I'm
agree.
a-
I agree. Yeah. Yeah.
There's a nice line where Luigi says, "I'll introduce you to my mother," and Billy says, "Oh." He says, "No, she's not going to be very happy though." Billy says, "Oh." He says, "Yeah, but don't worry, we won't tell her you're not a virgin."
Yeah.
Because that's the problem.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah. Yeah, and that's it. Roll credits.
Yeah. Okay, do you have any trivia about this movie?
Well, not a lot, but a little bit.
Okay.
So I don't have a budget for the film. I don't know how much it cost.
Mhm.
I don't think it was a lot, despite the presence of some quote unquote famous or maybe infamous German actors.
Right.
Germany, like France, doesn't track the profitability of films by gross.
Okay.
Instead, they also go by ticket sales.
Okay.
So this sold 433,000 tickets in Germany,
Okay.
which doesn't make the film a success.
Oh, okay.
Don't think it did very well.
What's the population of Germany?
I don't know, but by comparison, like the most successful German movies tend to sell at a minimum, like 7 million.
Okay.
7
7 million tickets.
Going up.
Okay.
Yeah, 7 million tickets. Like this came out in what, 96?
Yeah.
2 years later, Titanic.
Mhm.
In 1998, Titanic came out. That sold 18 million.
Okay.
Almost 19 million tickets. But of course, that's an outlier because it's the second most successful movie in Germany ever.
Yeah.
But by comparison, like sort of, the top 10 most successful German productions by ticket sales are, like the 10th most successful sold 7 million tickets in 1970. So your film pretty much has to sell, I suppose, a couple of million tickets if it's modestly budgeted in order to make back your budget. And Killer Condom didn't do that.
Okay.
Incidentally, as a point of interest, the 10 most successful German productions by ticket sales are all either comedies,
Okay.
or westerns.
Huh. Bizarre.
And the highest, the most successful movie in terms of highest gross and highest tickets sold is a comedy western. So I kind of feel like all my stereotypes about Germans are exploded reading that. Like that they both, want to have a laugh.
Yeah.
And really like cowboys.
Yeah.
So yes, the film didn't do too good.
Okay.
Cinema. There's a film magazine. It maybe wasn't even very popular because a film magazine called Cinema Magazine voted it größten flop, or biggest flop of the year of 1996.
Okay.
Beating Showgirls.
Whoa. Wow.
So worse than Showgirls, according to the movie-going German public of the year 1996. There's no accounting for taste.
Well, I think it's a hard sell. I think even calling your movie Killer Condom is asking for trouble. I mean, asking for low ticket sales. You're advertising that this is not a mass market movie. You can't fool people into coming in to see it with a title like that. You can only lure in the people that know,
like the comic,
that like the comic or know what they're in for, or like the wackiness of the title, and are going to go for that in the first place, which I think is much smaller than a mainstream audience.
I wonder if those people that voted for it as biggest flop had even seen it, because I think if you saw it, you might have liked it.
Yeah.
Which brings us on to our next point, which is our votes.
Okay, the comic is a yay for me. I thought these were pretty wacky. I like the juxtaposition of the Bigfoot cartooning style with the just over the top crazy shit that was happening. I liked how matter of fact it was about everything. else around it, I guess, if that makes sense. How about you?
These comics are funny. I'm glad they exist, but I don't think I'm their target audience.
Sure.
It was just a bit much for me.
I don't know. It's
A little
interesting,
bit
though,
too-
because in Germany, he doesn't seem to have a target audience. It seems to be like all sorts of people are reading it. Well, just based on the trailer I saw for the movie and stuff like
Well,
that. I think, but
well,
that's
I'm
how they're
not.
trying to sell it. But
I'm not German either.
no, that's true. That is true.
But yeah, so for me, it was a bit too much,
Yeah.
a little too over the top.
Okay.
And we're pretty generous on this podcast when it comes to comics. We haven't voted nay since Sheena,
Wow. Okay. Right.
so I think I'm due for a nay, and
Okay.
I didn't really enjoy them, and I can't see myself reading
Okay.
them again.
Okay.
The film, on the other hand,
Okay.
for me is a yay.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, I really like the film. I was laughing a lot all the way through.
Yeah.
I thought it was really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was funny. I thought that it had a kind of like a nice message.
Right.
Pretty. It's wholesome almost for a film about condoms
Yeah.
and sex workers
Yes.
and transvestites
Yes.
and people that and the mutilation of people's genitals. It feels really wholesome.
I agree. I agree. There's something, like I mentioned before, there's no judgment of anybody or anything going on. It's very positive. It's weird. Because it's a parody of horror, it's not really horror. I think that's part of it. Like, you're not actually horrified by the impossible things that are happening. It's not like Michael Myers, who can come into the suburbs, come into your house, use your own kitchen knife to kill you. This is a thing which cannot happen, and it's so ridiculous. And it's not even just the condoms, it's also the genetic engineering of them and the mad scientist laboratory and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You're like, this is a big joke, and everybody's just here to laugh at it. So yeah, absolutely, it was a yay for me too. I'm
Brilliant.
surprised it's not. Well, I think it's found some resurgence in recent years, especially with the Vinegar Syndrome release just last year. I mean,
I couldn't find a lot of evidence online for this, but I think it's something of a cult movie.
yeah, I agree. Well,
And
I
well,
always
it must be in order to get the remake.
I
from
always
Vinegar.
wanted to see it because I read about it in the Giger books. He always mentioned it. It was always mentioned there, and you'd
Right.
see some designs. I was like, what is this movie? Someday I'll watch it. Now I finally have. Yeah.
And interesting, and yet it has so little of Giga in it, which is a bit
That's
of a shame.
true. That is true.
But what about adaptation?
It's a yay for me. I actually think it's pretty close. I think the comic is obviously more rubbery. Like
You're on fire.
It's
Kumar.
more. It's like more goofball. I think the movie is a little bit more straight, but it has to be because it's parodying how straight and hard-boiled those movies are. So it has to be
Yes.
that way. You can't have the
Yes.
giant noses and the floppy hands and stuff like that. You couldn't do the movie with Muppets, if you know what I mean.
No.
Despite whatever that thing Giger saw was, the puppet version, which I'm very
Right.
curious
Well,
about.
I can only imagine what that was like.
But yeah. So I do think it was really fair. I don't know quite what Koenig's issue with it was, especially since he co-wrote it. There must have been something about the literalness of it, or I don't know. Anyway, what do you think?
I don't know. Till we find that documentary,
Yeah.
maybe we can track it down for the next time we
Yeah.
do a Ralf König film. For me, it's also a yay.
Okay.
As you know, one of the things I like about a good adaptation, along with the things I'm always harping on about, I like what they take away as much as what they put in. And I felt like this made some good choices in taking things away. For example, like it took away the monster, the Raoul, and instead substituted more killer condoms.
Yes.
In a film called Killer Condoms, that's the only way to go.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think it was the only option. I think otherwise you'd really have two movies in one if you switched killers in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was waiting for him to show up, and when he didn't, I thought, that's clever.
Yeah.
Combining the love interests. I mean, I suppose obvious in retrospect, but I think it's a good choice. then there's, I think just make smart choices generally. Like the character of Babette, I think is good, even though it doesn't really have much bearing on the plot.
Yeah.
That character is fun and interesting and kind of reveals things about other characters because of her history on the police force and because of her presence in the hotel and her running the drag show. And we even get a pretty good scene where she sings a song.
Yeah. Lip syncs.
In drag.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, she lip syncs it, you're right, but perfectly. Lip syncs it perfectly.
Yeah. And that actually plays out a bit differently than... Yeah, it is a really great lip sync, but it plays out a bit differently because in the comic, Luigi is very annoyed by the singing.
Yeah, you're right. And in fact, he's really annoyed by the Barbara Streisand impersonator.
Yeah.
And in fact, he goes up on stage and hurls abuse at them. And it felt a bit mean-spirited. And so here in the film, to have like Babette have this whole number. Incidentally, Luigi visits her in the dressing room and she's getting ready for her number. And he gives her a present, which is a traveling iron.
Yes. Yeah.
like an iron that you can fold up and take with you when you travel. And she's not really into it. And she says, anyway, I gotta get on stage. He's like, oh yeah, I suppose I should get going too. And then she goes out on stage and she's wearing a completely different outfit to the one that she was wearing backstage when she was getting ready to go on stage.
Yeah.
Found just another funny moment.
Yeah.
So yes, I think it makes good choices. And in some other ways it's good too. I think it's a more effective noir parody. I mean, the comic aped noir sensibilities by having things like rolling credits in a comic book to remind us that it was making fun of noir film.
Yeah.
Here, we've got an actual film making fun of noir
But
film.
also think about how the credits in the comic were like, well, this is hilarious because it's credits for music in a comic book. But here we've got the bloody logo over the U.S. flags. I mean, that's a great substitution,
you know? Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. And of course, as we've already said, I also like how much more personality the killer condoms have.
Yeah, the squeaking noises film. Especially.
The way they squeak.
Yeah.
Whoever's doing those props, the way that they would make them rumple up when they were disappointed or perk up when they were interested.
Yeah.
Really cool. So this is definitely a yay for me.
So definitely, I'd say not for everybody, but you know from the title if Killer Condom is the kind of movie that you would want to watch, is what I would say.
Yes, sure. That's fair.
Okay. So please like, rate, review, subscribe on whatever your platform is. Please join us on Facebook for memes and stuff and links. Please join us on Instagram for Reels, which I've started putting up every week. I've been cutting clips from every episode. Please join our Patreon at patreon.com/comicbookmovieoblivion. All one word, so I can buy DVDs which have been misprinted at the factory. That's what your hard-earned dollars are being spent on. Was there something else there? Oh, please email us. It's cbmoblivion@gmail.com. The address is in the show notes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so next week can you guess what we're going to do next week?
Well, we're going to go on hiatus.
Well, sorry, yes, we're going on hiatus, but when we come back, we're going to do the other Ralf König that's available in English.
No!
It's got 2 titles in English. It's called Maybe, Maybe Not, or it's called The Most Desired Man. My understanding is a bit of a romantic comedy type thing. It's not a horror parody or a noir parody. I think it's completely different. And based on what they said on Horror Queers, the movie is a little bit straight-washed. So we will see if that is the case or not.
So maybe we'll see. We'll see if cishet males can solve homophobia.
Absolutely.